All right, welcome back to another episode of CHP Sports with Kenny and Anthony. I am Anthony D'Orazio, and that is on the other side of the screen, probably that side, Kenny Barber.
What's up, guys?
Kenny, how you doing today?
Good, man. Can't complain.
There you
So
go.
nice Father's Day yesterday, and sat in the pool most of the day, and went out to dinner.
Oh, very
and,
nice.
Treated myself to a little ice cream afterwards.
Yeah, and you have two little guys, right?
Correct. Two monsters.
Two little monsters. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I just have the dogs. I've mentioned it in the podcast that my wife and I struggle with infertility, so I will not be being a dad, at least in the traditional sense. But that's okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do a more full podcast on that at some point. We've talked about it in certain groups, you and I.
Yeah.
But that not, I guess, publicly, officially.
A great topic too that probably isn't talked about.
Yeah, no, it is, and I think it's worthwhile for us men to talk about that. So
For sure.
we will talk about it in a more public setting at some point. All right, today a couple of interesting topics, sports topics from the past week, and we are going to start with the NBA, and specifically the Philadelphia 76ers, who lost Game 7 2 days ago. If you're watching this one, this premieres on Tuesday. We're recording on Monday, so they lost on Sunday to the Atlanta Hawks. Kenny, we're going to start with you here because you are from the area, and I know you have strong opinions here. I'm going to munch on some nuts here maybe and drink my drink and listen to you go off on trusting the process and how the process failed you, probably.
Yeah, man. And it's like, I looked at my Facebook feed last night and this morning because I actually shut the game off. It was so bad to watch. I was like, they're not going to win. I could tell by the second quarter they weren't winning the game. And I was like, I'm not going to stay up and watch because I knew it was going to happen. And it's pretty bad to think like that, but I knew they weren't going to win.
You sound like me as a Browns fan up until about a year ago, 2 years ago. Where like every game, it's like, oh, well, it's the first quarter, and I'm turning it off because I know we lost.
And and it, like to me, it's like for the pieces they have, right? You got Embiid, who should have been All NBA this year. I don't know why.
He had a very good year when he was healthy. He was very good.
Yeah, I guess position wise, they had Joker at the center, but I don't know. In this NBA, like just put the best 5 guys for All NBA, but that's a whole other story. Ben Simmons was All NBA last year, I believe. This all-world point guard, right? He can do it all, except for one thing now. He can't shoot a basketball or a free throw. To me, it's like saying like a baseball player can't hit. Like it's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. My Facebook feed was just lots of, guys I talk sports with, and like, they've all debated, is Simmons good or does he stink, right? And now it's an overwhelming, he's terrible. But the team debacle. They went down game 1, right? They lost it. So here's a weird thing about this. I think they were the best home team in the league this year, right? They had the 3rd best record in the league. They were unbelievable at home. They lose game 1 at home, which doesn't make sense. Then they win 2 games, right? So all's right in the world again. Game 4, they lose it. And then game 5, they're up 26 points. They're ready to go up 3-2 in the series. In the 4th quarter, they blow a 26-point lead and lose. So now they're down 3-2. And then they win again in Atlanta. And now they're back home, right? No way they're going to lose 2 games at home in a 7-game series, right? I don't even think they did that all year within 5 or 6 games, right? So, and then they lose. And it's just, and you look at the stats. I mean, Doc Rivers didn't have really good stats either. He's lost, I think, 20-some, like, games or something.
For a guy that gets, like, continually gets coaching gigs, I don't ever feel like he's that good.
Yeah,
his teams always seem to come up short to me.
Well, I saw a stat, too. It was, like, most or biggest coaches with the biggest playoff game comeback losses, and he had 5 of them. Right? Out of like 10 that were posted, I think he had 5 of the worst comeback losses in playoff history. So not a good track record there. And I don't know what it is as far like I mean, clearly, that like Atlanta was specifically just fouling Simmons because they knew he couldn't make any points from the foul line. He shot 34%, I think it was, the lowest of all time ever in the NBA in the playoffs. And just, I don't think it's a physical thing for him. I just think mentally he lost it and he checked out by like game 4. And like you said, he was 3 for 3 in the fourth quarter in 7 games. Like he took 3 shots. That's insane.
How you can be a starting guard and only take 3 shots in the fourth quarter in all fourth quarters of a 7-game series? I mean,
Yeah,
that's
and a guy that's an all-star, right? He's all NBA guy. Like I just don't understand how that's acceptable. A guy that has a max type huge contract, and then you have Tobias Harris, who had a decent game last night. He had 24 or 20, I forget what it was. But like you have these 3 big pieces, right? These are the kind of teams that you see winning these series. And then you have Atlanta, who has Trae Young, right? He's their superstar, and then a bunch of good role players, right? They're not really big superstars. They got Bogdanovic and Gallinari and Collins, right? Some good pieces. Lou Williams, right? Solid guy. He used to play for Sixers. But you wouldn't like look at both rosters and be like, "Yep, Atlanta's winning this series," right? But they, like you said, they just have a more balanced team, and it almost seemed like watching who could try the worst and still win. It was really bad basketball the whole entire series. That's why I actually turned it. It was just there was a sequence where it was just terrible pass, missed shot, missed 3-pointer. I feel like the 3-pointer has changed the game, but it's also made it worse in some ways.
Yeah, so I just pulled up the stats from yesterday. So
Okay.
game 7, the Hawks shot 25% from 3-point range, 7 to 27.
Yeah.
And the 76ers were barely better at 9 for 28, so 32%.
Yeah, it just so like, I mean, the Splash Brothers made it big, right? Shoot the 3, but they're making way more threes than a lot of these teams are. So it's turned into a different game. And with 2 teams that have good inside games and good players inside, you'd think it would, especially with a 26-point lead, maybe you slow it down a little bit, dump it inside to your big man and ride them to the victory, right? But, they're just jacking up threes and throwing balls in the stands. And it was so bad. And just a shame, really, because, that's a team, a number 1 seed out of the playoffs. And didn't even make the Eastern Conference Finals.
So since you follow them a bit more than I do, obviously, because you're in the area and from the area, what do you think they should do next? I mean, should they just blow it up? I mean, the problem now is that everyone in the league knows Simmons is Simmons, right? Like,
yeah,
he's a good defender. He can pass the ball. He can run an offense, but he can't shoot, right? And he doesn't. I think the biggest thing this series showed is that he doesn't want the ball when the pressure's on.
Yeah, there was even
when
a
the
play
game's
where
online, he doesn't want the ball.
he had a wide open dunk. And
he just passed on the dunk.
Yeah. So yeah, and that's the issue. Like everyone saw that series, so everyone's like trade him, but now it's like, well, what are you going to get for him?
Yeah, you're gonna get pennies on a dollar for him.
I know we've talked about Damian Lillard, right? Maybe that's a market he wants to come to, but I think you got these huge contracts with Tobias Harris, right, and Simmons, and do you trade them both there to get Dame back? I would take that in a heartbeat, but I want a guy like Dame on my team, not a guy that's scared to shoot the ball. So
yeah, no, Dame would work well probably on that team with Embiid.
Yeah, and then you got pieces like you got Curry. He had a great series. I think he
played pretty well.
He's their second best player in my opinion right now, but they didn't play him a lot. It was weird with the minutes, but he's the only guy that can hit a shot when you need it. And then you got Danny Green, who was out, right? He didn't even play this series, so that was another big piece they were missing. And Embiid was hurt. He's still a liability. I wouldn't be surprised if he had a career-ending injury at any minute, right? You don't wish that on anybody, but he's just that type of player. Yeah. So there is risk there, but he's huge upside, right? We know he's a good player. But man, the injuries, he's got a torn meniscus right now. He's going to have to get that fixed. I don't know what else they do. I don't know if I guess they keep Doc around. But he's shown continuously that he struggles in the playoffs. And you can always say, oh, it's, the coach isn't on the floor, but when it becomes like a pattern, right, then obviously something's happening that he's missing. I even saw they were talking before the game yesterday about how Doc thought it was like preposterous to sit Simmons, right? Because he's this all NBA type player, all star. But like, is it like if a baseball player is 0 for 50, you're probably going to sit him, right? Like you just, it's just so the whole thing was just so bad, and it's tough to see, because I'm friends with a lot of Philly fans are a little different. We know this. Um, my gosh, it's so hard to watch, and that's why I don't get too attached. I'm just like, I never thought they had a chance to win it all anyway. But because I thought Brooklyn was that good, but we can transition into that too. But I think injuries have been the biggest winner of this playoff so far. So
yeah, no, I definitely, so finishing up on the 76ers. Yeah, I don't know what you do. I mean, you have so much money invested in Simmons. I mean, the big question I think is Simmons. I think, Curry is a keeper. I think obviously Embiid's a keeper, but I agree with you. It seems like every game with him is rolling the dice. Either he's going to have a triple double and have dominate the game probably, or he's going to injure himself. Right?
yeah,
So it seems like it's one of those two things. And then, I mean, Harris seems like a solid player from what I've seen and what I've heard. He seems like he's pretty solid. And then, but Simmons, I don't. Can you run an offense with someone that doesn't want to shoot is afraid to shoot the ball and can't shoot a free throw?
It's a crazy concept to think about.
That's a guard, right? He has to handle the ball. It's not like he's a forward. Charles Barkley was talking on the Inside the NBA last night, where it'd be one thing if he's a forward, you could kind of hide him on the offensive end if his defense was that good, right? If he's racing shots in the lane and such a disruptive force on defense, kind of like Draymond Green.
Yeah, Draymond, Rodman, guys like that.
You can kind of hide a little bit on the offensive end if they're not handling the ball.
Yeah,
but he's a point guard.
You get layups, you get rebound layups, you get dunks, that kind of stuff. Joakim Noah was a guy like that. He couldn't shoot to save his life. But
Anderson Frazier for the Cavs, not at that level, but like a step down.
Yeah, but those guys known for not being able to shoot foul shots. I mean, look at Shaq. He's not a good foul shooter, and he developed a nice little turnaround shot, and he dunked the ball a lot, and he he scored from that area because he was so big. But yeah, when you're handling the ball every time down the floor, I mean, and you have zero threat to shoot the ball, then he didn't even want to take the ball to the rack.
Yeah,
just it's a crazy concept. To me, my one buddy always says, what's the first thing you do when you pick up a basketball, right? You probably dribble it and shoot it, right?
You don't pass it to someone else and go, hey, let me play defense on you real quick.
If I'm going to my driveway and I pick up my basketball, I'm going to dribble it and shoot it, right? That's just what I'm going to do. It doesn't make sense. It's like I said, it's like a pitcher that can't throw strikes, or it doesn't make sense. So you look at track and field, it's like a sprinter that's slow. It doesn't make sense.
Hey, don't talk about my high school track career like that.
But God, and it's so frustrating because you see the guy's got all the skills, right? He's got everything.
Yeah, I mean, I'm rooting for the guy. I'd like him to work on his shot and come back and prove us all wrong. That'd be great. So I don't want him to. Not that he would ever listen to this little podcast, but I certainly would like him to be able to shoot the ball. I don't want to see someone struggle to that extent in any regard, really. But it's just crazy. Like I said, it's crazy.
And then I look at too, the track record of the process, right, and all that stuff. But they did draft what's his name, Fultz, in the first round, first pick, and he had the same issue.
Shoot.
Yeah, he just mentally that was it. He was done. Two first picks in the draft, two of them, who are complete mental cases at this point, and it's tough to again, you don't want to see a guy do bad. You want to root for the guy, but there's something missing right now from him, and he needs do they have that kind of help for these guys when you think about it, right?
Sports psychologist of some sort.
Yeah, do they have that? I'm sure they do, but is it working? It doesn't look like it. I don't know. But man, just tough to watch, really tough. And especially too, like I said, Atlanta, good team, but I didn't think they'd ever get to the Eastern Conference Finals, especially the three teams that I thought were the top three teams.
Yeah, so they will be taking on the Milwaukee Bucks, who beat the injury addled Nets.
Yeah.
And it's, as you said, the real winner, it seems like, from these playoffs would be injuries. I was talking to my father about it, and my father's not the biggest LeBron James fan, and he called me. He's like, LeBron James says they didn't have enough time to recover. He's like, they had 70 days to recover. Isn't that enough? And I was explaining to him, I'm like, well, one way to be is to check the actual data. And then someone did, and the injury rates were higher this year. Like on a per game basis, I think someone checked like the number of people that were sitting out based on injury, and it was like normally it's like between 3 and 4, and if you add up the two sides, and this year it was like 5 on average, something like that. So it was definitely higher this year. But I was telling my father, I'm like, look, as coaches, you and I, we understand this is that okay. You get through a season, by the time the season ends, you're at, your body's rest, especially something, at the highest level, you're putting your body through like the sort of max effort a body can get through for that, type of sport, whatever that sport may be, basketball in this case. Right. So then you figure, okay, you're probably going to take like 2 to 4 weeks where you're basically off, right? Both for, physical recovery and mental recovery, right? You just, you need time mentally to recover and sort of like, spend time with your family who you've probably been away from for most of the year, right? Because you're traveling, you're playing basketball for the last 9 months, right? So okay, now you're 30. We'll say you're 20 days in. Let's say take 3 weeks, right? You're basically 20 days into the 7 days you have off, right? Okay, now you want to do some like general physical preparedness work, right? You're not probably doing basketball specific work, right? I know you and I, like if someone told me like we were building a program for that, I'd say like, okay, I want at least 4 weeks, but probably like 6 weeks to really work on that. Like basic aerobic conditioning, basic just strength, right? Building someone up to give them the strength and resiliency to get through a 82 game basketball season. If it was a full season, I think this year was a little shorter. They cut back a few games. I think it was like 72 or whatever, but nevertheless, a lot of basketball games, right? Well, let's say you do 4 weeks. Let's say we do the short end. Well, now all of a sudden we're at 50 days basically, right? So now we only have like 20 days to get a training camp in and like basketball specific training in, right? So it's like, yes, the bodies of these guys who are the top end athletes, if they played in the playoffs last year, they did not have a lot of time to recover. And I think that's something that for those of us that are mere mortals and aren't able to sort of get that peak performance all the time out of ourselves, that's hard to imagine, right? Like why, 70 days for you and I would be plenty of time, right? But we're not pushing ourselves through a 70 or 80 game NBA season, before that. So I think you're seeing that cumulative effect of many, many games does take a long time to recover from. And the Nets, unfortunately, paid the price. Now, you could argue, Kyrie's injury was kind of just a basketball injury. I wouldn't necessarily chalk that one up specifically to, it's like an overuse injury and like you were under recovered. No, he kind of just, he went up like we talked about last week. He got, Durant stepped underneath, or Giannis stepped underneath him and he just rolled his ankle on Giannis's foot. That's anyone that's ever played basketball, that's you've rolled your foot on someone's ankle. It's happened.
It happens. Happened to me.
But it's like the Harden thing is probably more of a wasn't a long enough off season, type of deal, right? So instead of losing one star, which bad luck, it happens though, they're basically down a star and a half because the James Harden that was playing was not the James Harden everyone knows.
He wasn't hitting any shots at all.
No, he was terrible. Like there were times, like I think it was in Game 7 when they mentioned he was on the floor. They're like, oh, Harden's played 47 minutes because they went into overtime, so he played like 48 for the game or something. And I was like, he's on the floor. Like he had done so little, I didn't even realize he was on the floor.
Yeah, and was out,
which is not something you usually say about him.
Yeah, bad passes. A lot of turnovers. He was out there, but that wasn't the James Harden you're used to seeing. And I think there's something to be said too with the rest. And I think a lot of these guys that we see as like these megastars are getting older, right? LeBron's old in NBA. Kyrie's older in the NBA. James Harden's older in the NBA. These guys have all been in the league. for a while now. So maybe there was something there, right? Like maybe they didn't recover well. And basketball, people don't realize I think it's one of the most physical sports you can possibly play. Not only just the athletic part of it, right? It's running, cutting, jumping, stopping, flying in the air. These guys are freaks, right? They're jumping higher than most people ever dreamed of. And
it's repeated high transient loads.
Yeah.
Right? It's just repeated, like everything they're doing is, jumping. Like if you're jumping, obviously they're not jumping. I spit all over myself. Yeah, I know, right? Ask my poor wife. I do it all the time. But it's if you're at least a couple times a game, you're going full go, sprint, full go, jump. Those are high loads, right? Because you have the, just on a jump, you have the, obviously the force of pushing off the ground, but you also have the impact force of landing that you have to deal with, right? And as we age, I'm sure you and I, if you ask me to jump as high as I can, like I can do it, but when I land, I don't like it. Like my knees aren't happy, my hips aren't happy.
My back hates it.
Yeah, like I'm not really thrilled with this, and I'm going, oh, this is what I feel my age.
And like you look at guys, but the other difference is these guys are 6'10", 270 pounds. Like these guys are massive, right? I don't know if you've ever been to an actual NBA game in person and seen how big these guys are. It's like it's very weird how big they are and how well they move. You got a guy like a LeBron who could probably just sign up tomorrow and play tight end in the NFL. Like they're just different athletes. Like it's hard to explain how much force. Like look at a guy like Zion. I mean, he literally jumps like I've never seen anything like it, and he's like 285 pounds, and he's 6'9" or whatever. I mean,
by enormous, I mean he's just physically he's very
he's a huge,
strong.
Human.
He's huge.
He's got muscle mass. Like so like I could see it being like that, right? They need more rest. They beat themselves up. It's a very explosive sport. So yeah, and then Kyrie's a huge piece of that. He was out. DeAndre Jordan, I don't know how long he was out, but he was out a while. He didn't play in the series at all. So some guys there that probably would have made a huge difference. And then half of a Harden, right? That's basically what they had. And but that said, I mean, Kevin Durant probably put on one of the greatest playoff performances I've ever seen. I mean, ever.
He is unbelievable. I mean, I think it was Game 5 day 1 when he had like 47.
Yeah, he had a triple-double.
Unbelievable.
Triple-double of 49 points. It was like
and then obviously Game 7 he had, he has runs in games where he is, as I was talking about, my father about it, he is truly unguardable.
Yeah, he's
that 3 he hit in Game 7 to send it in. Well, I guess it was a 2. If it was a 3, they would have won the game.
They were an inch away from winning.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that long 2 that he hit was an unguardable shot. Like it's a turnaround, effectively a 3. Like his foot was on the line. From a guy that's 6 foot. What is he? 6'11",
6'11", yeah, and
6'11".
I don't know what his wingspan is, but
and he shoots over everyone. He's athletic as just about anyone.
Yeah.
So it's a impossible shot to guard, and he's just so accurate. He's a joy to watch when he has those moments because I was telling my father, I was sad that it wasn't a 3. Like I was happy for overtime because I thought it was cool, but I was sad it wasn't a 3. And I was sad he airballed the last shot of the game. Because it was like put a damper on like how good he had been.
Yeah.
But at the same time, as we were discussing, he played 50 odd minutes. You can't play someone 50 odd minutes and give him no help.
They wouldn't even have been there if not for his other team.
Yeah, I mean, his team was like the rest of his teammates. I hate to call other NBA teammates useless, but they were not giving him a lot of help, like in overtime in the last 5 minutes regulation.
Yeah, and that Game 5, I mean, it got to the point where he was just dribbling across half court, and he would throw the ball up and it would go in. It was like a video game. It was crazy to see. And he had like 16 rebounds and 10 or 11 assists.
He was remarkable Game 5, and then Game 7. I mean, he showed up to play as well there.
And I saw a comment in a Facebook thread. I don't know if it's true, but someone said that he wears his sneakers one size too big, and I was like, if that is true, and his foot was on the line by about an inch, well, could that have won him the game if he had the right size shoe on? But I don't know if that's true or not. But
That's crazy.
yeah, but I mean, what a absolutely incredible series by him. But yeah, I don't feel like the best teams are in the West or Eastern Conference Finals right now. But that's what you get, right? The injuries, total debacles on the Sixers side of things, or just say the best teams all year that were doing well. But I mean, Milwaukee has been tough all year, right? And I said that they would be the top three there, whoever beats whoever. I just didn't think they had enough to even beat Brooklyn now, but they pulled out. They played good defense. Middleton played good. He's the key, I think. Like, we know Giannis is going to do his thing. He's going to get his 30, 35. He's 10, 15 rebounds. But they need help too, right? All these teams need help from other guys. So I think Middleton had a good series. Holiday was a bit off with his shooting. But yeah, it was a great series. Really exciting parts to it.
Yeah, it was a really good series. I don't know. Again, I don't know how much I believe in the Bucks. I guess, given that they just eked out, the series over a team that was down, basically 1.5 to 2 of their best players. Now they still had Durant, right? But at the same time, it's again, I think I mentioned last week, I really feel like Milwaukee is one of those teams that runs real hot or real cold. There's moments where they run offense and they look great. You're like, man, they're hitting their threes and they look, Holiday's on, and Giannis is like working into the post where he should be, instead of, because he can't shoot from the. So there's an obvious comparison. He can't shoot from the outside either, just like Simmons can't.
Yeah.
But he's better at finding ways to make stuff happen.
Yeah, get to the rack, and his free throws are terrible too, but at least he's trying.
And he's not afraid. I mean, he still poured in 40 in Game 7, right? It's not like Simmons disappears, whereas Giannis is at least he's trying to find ways to make it work, right? So I think that's the difference between a superstar that doesn't shy away from the moment, wants to embrace the moment, versus someone that's afraid of the moment.
Yep, and he's still playing hard either way. Like, he's giving it his all. And he's 110%. That's why you gotta I don't particularly like his game as much, because I do think he takes a lot of ill-advised shots and puts his team in some bad positions sometimes. Like, we're in times where he could give him a big lead and he's out shooting threes for some reason. Wasted possession, stuff like that. And then the inside NBA guys talked about it. Like, they're the dumbest team in the league. They kept saying it in the series. Like, Barkley's like, they just do the dumbest thing. They could go up by 15, but next thing you know, they're all jacking up threes when you got this guy inside. And the Sixers do it a lot too. Slow it down, play slow ball, dump it inside, get fouled, that kind of stuff. That's how you avoid those big comebacks, right? But I guess that's not a thing anymore. I don't know. It's a different NBA. Just keep jacking up threes. In the West was pretty shocking too. I thought Jazz went up 2-0, and then they lost. And they lost 2 games without Kawhi Leonard playing for the Clippers. So that was quite interesting in the Western Conference. And the Suns.
Yeah, I don't know. They fell. I mean, the Donovan Mitchell injury just crushed them.
Well,
I mean, again, it comes down to injuries. He was clearly not right.
Yeah, back to injuries. It's been crazy to see. And the Suns swept. They look all around pretty strong right now. So that'll be interesting on the Western Conference. I know we talked mostly about the East, but that's where I think the bigger stories were. But yeah, the Clippers, though, I mean, it's a big win for their organization. They got into the Western Conference Finals.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I guess predictions. Let's do predictions. Who do you Suns versus? I mean, the Suns are already up 1-0 against the Clippers. Who do you have there?
Yeah, I like the Suns. I feel like they're a very complete team right now, and they got good veteran in Chris Paul to lead them. They got Booker, who is a superstar in my opinion. What's his name in the inside? Aiden, or
I'm not gonna remember.
The big guy. He's good, solid player, and they got some nice pieces. So I think they're going to win there. I can't see Atlanta beating the Bucks. I just can't see it. I think they're a tough, scrappy squad. I think they play as a team, but I'm going to go Suns and Bucks in the finals.
I agree with Suns. I feel like Bucks Hawks is a toss up. I don't know what their regular season records were against one another. I guess I probably should have looked that up. Man, Trae Young. I want to say Trae Young. I think makes it. He's one of those people I always feel like is hard to put down. I'm gonna say it goes 6 or 7. I don't know who wins though. I think game 1 will tell me a lot more. If I see game 1, it'll tell me a lot more how they match up. To be honest,
I think too. It's like you said, which Bucks team shows up right there.
That's that's throwing me off. Is
if they can hit their shots with Giannis inside, it's tough because it's a good inside-outside game that they can play and really.
And if Middleton plays well and does it because he has games where he disappears.
Yeah, if he's on, they're tough, and they play great defense. That's their big thing. They play good defense. So if they can have any extra offense on the other end, they're tough to beat. So we'll see. And I think Holiday adds a good toughness to them too. He plays good defense. He's a little streaky shooting, but he still will go to the rack and try to score if need be. So interesting series. But I think the Suns are just been on fire. They just are tough. So I think they'll go. But it wouldn't surprise me if the Clippers put it together a nice series. So they got good veterans.
Yeah.
So
all right, U.S. our other big sort of event from the past week would be the U.S. Olympic trials, specifically track and field. I know the swimming trials also have been happening, but I'll be honest, I have not followed the swimming really at all. That's one of those things. As I was telling Kenny off air, when it comes to the Olympics, I will watch and get into the swimming at that point in time. But in the trials, I doesn't do anything for me. But the track and field stuff I thought was a lot of fun. I'm completely into it. If you follow me on Facebook, you probably know that because I've been posting about it. Lots of cool stories, I guess. Let's start with the Ryan Krauser story. So Ryan Krauser is a shot putter, and he set the world record in the shot put. And if you get a chance to watch this video, which I'm sure I think I posted it in the group, so I think you saw it. He basically almost throws a shot put out of the arena, like the little area that he have for the, where you throw the shot. There's the last line, and then there's a final line. He throws it almost to the final line. Like if he throws it another couple feet, it goes out of the arena. So super impressive. I know that's a record that's been around for a long time. So congrats to him.
He said he knew it when he threw it too.
Oh yeah, and if you watch it, he throws it and he immediately starts celebrating. The thing's still in the air. You see it. The camera's behind him from opposite the direction he's throwing. So he throws it and he they spin. So he throws it and he finishes his spin facing backwards at the camera and he throws his hands up. He's celebrating. You see the shot put still in the air. And he's already celebrating because he knows it's the world record.
It's like Steph Curry shooting a 3. He just walks away, goes in.
Yeah.
Yeah. He also said something interesting, I thought. He mentioned, because the article I read was talking about how, I guess the guy that had the record, or he was really good in 98 around there, but he got popped for steroids a bunch of times and he's banned forever. So the kid that just broke the record was it's really nice to know that, we have a world clean of athletes.
Clean world record.
Yeah, and I'm well, yeah, but I don't think the rest of the world is still, but at least he is. But he said it.
Yeah,
he thinks that he said it to the point where he was saying everyone's clean now and not. But I don't agree with that because I feel like it's still out there, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's an interesting. Matt Frazier got some heat for that. He made a comment fairly recently about CrossFit or the Olympic weightlifting being clean in the U.S. And More Plates, More Dates made a video about it, and I thought that was pretty good on YouTube. But yeah, I think in the U.S., the thing is, is it out there by other countries? Yeah, right. Just look at the Sochi doping scandal with the Russians.
Crazy story that was.
Why does an island nation of Jamaica with such a small population create so many amazing sprinters all the time? Right, this, on a per capita basis, it's pretty absurd how many great sprinters they make. With that said, within the U.S., I think the doping protocols are so stringent. I never want to say it's impossible for people to beat the test because people are always probably looking for ways to beat the tests,
Yeah.
and there are probably ways to do it.
I forget his exact comment. I don't want to misquote it, but it was basically, it just alluded to like, it was nice to win it clean and be competing against other clean people, which in the U.S. I could see that. I know, especially for weightlifting, I know they have tough testing.
I think it's very difficult to cheat at the in the U.S. at the Olympic level.
Yeah,
I would say based on the testing protocols and USADA and all that stuff. Like again, I'm not saying there aren't gaps, but I think it's difficult.
But I think it's nice that he,
especially with athlete passports now. I think they all have athlete like passports now.
Yeah, and you have to. So I know with Olympic weightlifting, you have to if you don't get tested when they ask for it within a certain amount of time, it's assumed a failed test.
It's a fail. Yeah.
So it's just good to see him breaking records. Knowing he's passed the test, right, or he's clean. I think that's super cool.
Yeah. So congrats to him. That was one of my. I have like 4 things I wanted to talk about from the U.S. Olympic trial. So he was one of them. So check mark on him. Shikari Richardson wins the 100 meters. She's going to the Olympics. She's been running phenomenally. She'll be a big star, I think, at this Olympics. She's got a very marketable look, I want to say. Like talking about someone's looks is always like in some ways problematic, but I think because the way you look has to do with marketability, of course. And so she's very charismatic. She has a very marketable look. She's got a great story. It's unfortunate. I think her biological mother passed away this week, and then 3 days later she wins the finals and the trials. Look great. I forget her. I think she ran a 10.84 or something like that. Very, great time. Came back.
I think she's not a great starter. I think it was a 10.64 was the time.
Was it?
Yeah. Because I think her old time was 10.7 something she ran last time. But either way, it was she bettered it, is what they said. I'm pretty sure.
Women's 100-meter final. 10.86 she ran in the final. She may have run faster.
Oh, okay.
Earlier on, but in the final I was off by 0.02. I was supposed to say, I think it was So she ran 10.86. Our other qualifiers there, Javavian. Apologies to anyone if I mess up their names. Javavian Oliver and Tiana Daniels, I believe, both made it, and they both already have the Olympic standards, so they are good to go. But so great race by her. She's stayed very, very patient, because she's not the best starter. And, so at 20 meters, 30 meters, she was probably in 3rd or 4th. She trusted her top end speed, and she has the highest top end speed in the field. And so, at 85 meters, she's passed everyone and took the win. So congrats to her. She, really cool scene with her going up and hugging her, I believe, her family. It was really cool. So I'm excited to see what she does, at the Olympics, because she has been running extremely well this year. So I'm glad nothing weird happened, with her qualifying.
I watched the race. They said she was a little slow out of the start, but then you could see she just smoked everybody after that. She was pointing she was pointing as she was going across the finish line. Oh, I see. Sorry, go ahead. She ran a 10.64 though in the semifinal. That's what it was. But it was wind aided.
Wind aided, yeah. So wind aided times are weird because they're wind aided, but at the same time, when they're really, really crazy, it means that athlete's body knows what it feels like to go that fast.
Yeah.
Right. And that's something, we've talked about in the podcast, I believe, before, not necessarily with you and I, but I think with Nicodemus. I talked about it with him, for running. As you get faster, one of the things you have to train is you have to train your body to get used to running faster, what it feels like to run faster, because, it's like running downhill, right? Like if anyone, pretty much all of us have probably run down a hill at some point in our lives. Like the steeper the hill, right, you start braking because you feel out of control.
Yeah.
And, the same thing happens like for sprinting, right? After a certain point, like if you were going so fast, you would feel out of control. It's the same idea. So you have to kind of train your body to get used to that. So those wind aided times, they don't count for records, obviously, but I do think they're good to get occasionally because, especially if you can put up a real crazy time, because it trains your body. Like this is what this time feels like going down the track. So she's got some speed in her. Obviously U.S. women I don't think have won like 100 meters in the Olympics since I think they said 1996. That's obviously an event that the Jamaican women have dominated over that sort of time period. So I think that'll be exciting. The other my third big story, I guess, that I felt was a big story was Allison Felix makes her 5th Olympic squad, which is amazing, just absurd. In the 400 meters, she came back in the home stretch. She did at 300 meters. She looked like she was out of it. I don't know how she managed to gut out a 3rd place on that run, but she looked. It's for someone like me that's been a long-term fan of track and field, especially U.S. track and field. She's been such a mainstay. The last 20 years, she's been running and competing at the highest level. So it was great to see her. I don't know how old she is. I mean, she's not that old. I mean, because I think she was competing she was like 18.
So that puts her in her late 30s, right?
Yeah, now I'm curious. I want to know how old she is.
It's crazy impressive either way to be racing against 20-year-olds.
She's 35.
Okay.
Yeah, 35. So, yeah, crazy good. She's a mother. They kind of hammered that home quite a bit. But yeah, she got 2nd place. She squeaked out a second 50.02. The 3rd place was 50.03. That was really close. And 4th was 50.10. And winner was Quinera Hayes. I think I'm just not saying her name correctly. 49.78, which was the season best. Actually, the top 4 all ran season best. So that's awesome. Yeah, so that was a really fun race. Very fun down the home stretch. And it's cool to see her again in another Olympics. I was kind of hoping Gatlin would make it in the 100, but he pulled up lame. I guess he hurt his hamstring in the semis, and they ended up pulling up in the final. This is what's crazy. He pulled up and still ran a sub 11. He ran 10.87, and he jogged half the race.
Yeah,
which I don't know what that says about how not fast I ever was.
Yeah, puts it into perspective for sure.
Yeah, right.
And how old is he now? He's got to be up there.
39.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is he 40?
39.
I feel like he's close to
now he's an interesting case with he was banned for 2 years because he popped.
Yeah.
For I forget what he popped for. He's claimed innocence and all this stuff.
Maybe he ate a burrito.
He ate a burrito. Yeah. That actually sounds pretty plausible. That poor lady. I feel bad for her.
I read Alex put a good explanation about it.
Yeah, cool. The thing is, people have popped for this, eating tainted. I don't know if you want to call it tainted, but meat that's been pumped with anabolics because it's useful for the people growing the meat. It causes positive tests. So, to me, it sounds like there were no follow-up tests. Which it's like, okay, if the person never popped before, and then they pop, and then you could easily have them. So this is one of the things I want to know is what's the clearance time, right? Because if they pop for something where the clearance time is say a week, you test them on say Monday, test comes back Tuesday, and it's hot. Well, and you go, hey, let's test you, and you're like, hey, I had this tainted burrito or whatever. Test the B sample. Let's go test the meat. If we know this is a problem,
yeah.
And to me, I know someone in the Facebook group was like, "Is it wrong to think that athletes should know what they're putting into their bodies?" To me, I'm like, yeah, for pills and supplements, yeah, you should know what you're putting in that case. But food, no one thinks I can't go eat that burrito.
Yeah, I wouldn't think that either.
Yeah, it's. To a certain, so to a certain extent, I don't blame the athlete in that case. Right? It's one thing if they're like, "Oh, someone gave me this pill and told me to eat it. I ate it." Okay, in your case, you're being a moron.
Yeah.
But
and I think a lot of those high level athletes, and some of them can just eat kind of whatever they want at most points because of their training.
Yeah.
And they're not. Yeah. They're just superior athletes in general.
Well, and it's.
I think Michael Phelps made that pretty famous 10,000 calorie a day diet, right? They're not worried about a burrito.
Performance enhancing is always a weird topic because right. Let's say I'm on testosterone, right? Therapy. Let's say I'm taking testosterone therapy just as an aging male, right? I go to my local age clinic, and I'm just taking testosterone to boost me up to normal, high level normal. Okay, completely legal. No one's gonna bat an eye really. Let's say I start competing in triathlons because I want to try it out. Let's say I start doing well, right? At what point is like do I go, oh shit, like I guess I'm kind of like cheating here,
Yeah.
right? If because a lot of times people, you just get into a sport, you're just doing it for fun, right? Oh, I just want to try this out. Like I'm not trying to gain a competitive edge. I just want to try this sport, but so I mean, yes, there should be. I'm not arguing against drug testing, but I can see how the local bodybuilder tries jujitsu, then like enters the local grappling tournament because everyone in the school is doing it. He just jumps in, like,
Yeah.
all right, well, is he cheating? Well, yeah, I guess, but they're not drug testing, and like,
Yeah.
he's not really trying to be competitive. He's just, it's a weird thing. All right, so let's Allison Felix. We mentioned Gatlin, and then I guess it takes us to the men's 100 meters, which was a really fun race. Interesting people, I guess, results, I guess, kind of. Winner was not surprising. It was Trayvon Bromell, who we mentioned in the past. He's got the season leading time on the year. We mentioned him, I think, 2 weeks ago when he dropped a 9.77, which is the fastest time this year in the world. He's the 7th fastest person in history with that time, I believe. So he's running extremely well. Guys come back from like multiple knee surgeries. Blew out his knee in the Olympics in 2016. Had another like multiple surgeries to prepare for that. Didn't run for a year and a half. So he's got a great story. He's running out of his mind. So he dropped a 9.80 in the final. Second place was Ronnie Baker, 9.85, which was a personal best. So it's always cool to see someone, drop a personal best on a big stage. And then Fred Curley, who I guess this is the big surprise, got the third qualifying spot at 9.86, so 0.01 behind his personal best. He is a 400-meter guy, or was a 400-meter guy. If you watch the broadcast, you would know that because they kind of were talking about that. Bigger runner, Trayvon Bromell is pretty slight. He's not a big guy. He probably weighs like 160 pounds. I would say like Curley, Baker, a little bigger, probably like 170, 180, a little bigger builds. And then fourth place, so just missing out on the qualifying spot, but I think he ran really well. Kenny Bednarik, who also ran a personal best at 9.89. So he missed out by 0.03. He's a 200-meter guy, so I think he's also running the 200 along with Curley. So he'll have a chance to hopefully make the team in the 200. He's been running really well this year in the 200, so I hope he makes it. And then Micah Williams ran a 9.91 in 5th place. So I mentioned it because that puts 5 guys in the final were under 10 seconds. And 6th place, Cravon Gillespie, who actually has a YouTube channel. So look him up. He was an Oregon Duck. Now I believe he's just a professional track field athlete. He ran a 10 flat. So basically you had 6 guys in the finals that were at 10 flat or under, which is
I was going to say, imagine running a 9.89 and you don't qualify.
And not qualifying.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy. Like breaking 10 is so fast.
Yeah. So you have, for everyone in the top 5 except for Trayvon set a personal best.
Yeah.
I guess the big surprise coming out, I guess Cravon that ran a 10 flat, it's not surprising he didn't make it. He's kind of new, he's young. He's only, I think, 20 or 21, maybe 22. He's got a bright future ahead of him. I think he'll improve, and I think, I won't be surprised if he makes the team in 4 years.
Yeah.
Are they doing the next Olympics in 3 or 4 years? Because
I don't know. That's actually a good question.
Yeah, I have no clue what they're doing with that. But I guess the big, surprise. I mean, Gatlin didn't make it; he pulled up, but Noah Lyles in 7th place. So Noah Lyles is defending 200-meter world champ, and he just has not been. He's been focusing more on the 100 this year, I feel like, and he just doesn't seem like he's running that well, I guess is the best way to put it. They had a really neat stat, or they have a really neat stat for the trials where they were they're tracking each real-time speeds during the 100. And so they would show the graph at the end of sort of when people were hitting their top speeds. Lyles had the highest top speed, 26.4 miles an hour, which is absurdly fast.
Yeah.
Like, just absurdly fast. That you could hit 26.4 miles an hour running at any point in time. But he's hitting it like the 80-meter mark, right? So obviously for a 200-meter guy, it's not an issue, and he can hold that speed, near his top end longer than most other people. But it's just it takes him so long to get going. So I'll be interested to see how he does in the 200 because I don't know. Something feels like it's not right with him this year. I hope he gets it together for the 200. But I guess it was a surprise that not so much that he didn't make the team. If you told me guys ran, that many guys ran under 9.9 or 9.95 and he didn't make it, I'd be like, well, those are really fast times.
Yeah.
If he doesn't have a great start, he's not going to make it. But to be that far back, he ran a 10.05. And keep in mind that winning time was 9.8, right? So he's 0.25. He's a quarter second behind, which in 100 is
that's a lot. Yeah.
Not when you and I are running it, the quarter second's nothing, but when those guys run it, it's a lot of time. So lots of fun stuff. I guess the only other thing I'd mention is the men's 400. Michael Norman ran a great race. Our qualifying, because I was a 400 guy in high school. Michael Norman ran 44.07. It's the season best, so I guess that's good. It was good to see because Norman's one of those. He's one of I think 3 people ever to run a sub 44. For sub 22 and a sub 10 100. Him and Van Niekerk, I don't know. There might only be those 2. I know Fred Curley's got the 100 and he's got the 4. He somehow doesn't have the 200. I don't know how you have a sub 10 100 and a sub 44 400, but not a sub 20 200. That seems weird to me. Like if you said you had 2 of those, that would not be the one I would expect you to be missing. So we'll see how he does. I think Curley's doing the 200 as well. He's not doing the 4. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does it and breaks it now and he would be added to that list. But Norman has not been running well. Finally put it together for the final here. Ran a 44.07, wins it. Very, very sort of strong performance from him. Michael Cherry had a good early rounds, runs a 44.35, his personal best. So he's running really well. Good job to him. And then Randolph Ross, the guy that won the NCAAs, and went under 44 at the NCAAs, went 43.85, which was the 3rd fastest time this year. It's the 3rd fastest in NCAA history. That's what it was. He looked like he was running on really tired legs. That like we talked about recovery. It looked like having run the NCAAs kind of took a lot out of him. Because it was it's like a 1-week break, right? So it's hard to peak for both meets right in a row. But he managed it. I thought he was out of it coming down the home stretch, very much like Allison Felix, and he somehow managed to nab 3rd place to make it. So congrats to him. I was going to be really disappointed. He wouldn't been on the team if he, you drop a 43.85 a week before, and then all of a sudden you just don't have the legs because of that to make it the next week. But he gutted it out. So great job to him. I'm really happy he's on the team. So I think he can. We know he's got a sub 44 in him for sure because he's done it. So hopefully he can put on something special at the Olympics. And 400s, I think I could see all 3 of those guys medaling in the Olympics, to be honest. Typically the U.S. we dominate the 400, at least for the men's. And, it wouldn't surprise me if we went, gold, silver, bronze in that event. So those are the big, I guess, takeaways I had. I know obviously we have more coming up this week.
I ran the 5K.
Oh, that was
I forget her name.
I posted it. Abby Cooper. I don't know. I think the final for that might be tonight, actually.
Okay.
Let's see here. Abby Cooper. Yeah, so Abby Cooper, there was a nice little feature on her because women's 5,000s to the finals tonight. So Abby Cooper in the semis managed to go out and ran a heck of a race. There is a highlight on the NBC Sports channel and here on YouTube. But she went out and ran, she did not have the qualifying standard for the 5,000, and she goes out and just
smashed it.
Went to get the qualifying standard. So she ran basically the last 5 laps by herself, and pushed herself to get that qualifying standard, which, it's a super impressive run because, if you ever ran our 5K, it's one thing if you're running with a pack and you've got people that are helping push you. To go out and push yourself for, half of a 5K to hit some time that's hard to hit is impressive. So very impressive race by her. And that means she can just, people might, if you're not familiar with running, why would she push herself that hard in a semi to do that? When she clearly, in some ways, all you have to do is qualify. But to make the Olympics, obviously, you have to not only make the team, but you also have to have what's called the qualifying standard. So you have to have a certain time, or like on the field events, a certain distance throw or jump to be able to go to the Olympics, because they don't want just like small country of Joe Schmoes, like I make the team. They send me to the Olympics like running a 13-second 100-meter dash. Right? I shouldn't be there. So that's why there's qualifying standards. You have to have the qualifying standard to compete in the Olympics, and then you have to actually make the team for your country. So she's got the qualifying standard. Now she just has to be top 3 in the 5K tonight, actually. Well, not tonight for if you're watching this, but tonight when we're recording this, it will be last night if you're watching this when this premieres. So
yeah, man.
We'll see how she does. Let's see, personal best. So yeah, so she ran a 15:07 in the prelims. I think the qualifying, I want to say the qualifying standard is like 15:10 or 15:15. Something like that. So that's for a 5K. So, I mean, that's very fast.
That's like quick math. It's less than a 5-minute mile repeated.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, a little faster than a 5-minute mile.
Yeah, that's insane.
So, yeah. So my best 5K was in high school, and that was I think it was like a 19:06. I never quite broke 19. I was close, but I didn't quite break it.
Yeah, I think I ran one like 4 or 5 years ago in like 23 minutes, 24 minutes. That was my fast. I didn't train for it. I just did it.
Went out and did it.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, that was pretty good. I was happy with that.
Yeah. I mean, she was throwing down like, so if for context, if people that might not know, she was doing her laps were around the 70 to 71 second range is what basically the pace is. So one time around the track. 70 to 71 seconds,
which is basically it's a sprint.
for us, yes, it is a sprint. It's a sprint that I don't think I could do right now.
No.
Let's put it that way. It's a sprint that I would die about 150 meters into.
Well, when in high school football, we used to run quarters, right? That we used to do it with rest in between, and like the running backs had to run like, it was like running backs, quarterbacks, they were expected to run like 80 seconds. The linebackers were like 85 seconds and the linemen were 90 seconds, right? And that was like, that was a lot. That was fast. And she's doing it over and over again at whatever speed you just said. It's crazy to think about. Absolutely impressive.
Yeah. So we got, so that's carrying on. It's on NBC late at night this week. Lots of fun stuff. Like I said, the 200-meter stuff's coming up later this week. 800-meter stuff, some of that's tonight. So yeah, I guess that's I was going to ask you as we sort of finish up here what you're looking forward to for the week. And then for me, it's more track and field trials for the U.S. Obviously, the basketball stuff I'll keep an eye on.
Yeah, I'm going to actually try to watch more of the track stuff. I have to like pay attention to when it comes on.
It's usually on NBC late night. So
NBC Sports.
NBC Sports usually the coverage starts earlier, but I know they've usually been transitioning to NBC at like 10.
Okay.
Because they try and cram all the important finals in that last hour.
Yeah.
So it's like because it's all out in Oregon at Hayward Field. So
okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
So it's on the Pacific Coast. So track USA.
Yeah, man.
As they call it.
Yeah, I'll definitely be watching the basketball. Baseball season is I call it the boring time of the year.
The doldrums.
Yeah, like no one. I don't know. It's just sometimes I feel like the season's too long, but
yeah,
it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, they're still trying to figure out all that like guys using goop on the ball stuff. So
yeah,
we'll see how that goes. All right, Kenny. Well, you can follow Kenny at K Barber 39.
Yes, sir. On Instagram.
Links sort of his name is below in the description. You can follow me at Durazio Anthony below. Give us a like if we're providing you some listening content in the background of your day. Give us a like, a follow, and help us grow the podcast. And share this link if you can. We'd appreciate it. And we will see you all next week. Peace.